Hello and welcome back to the Franchise Growth Pod. My name is Belle, Director of Marketing at AC Inc. And I am here with the one and only Steven Inglefield, the President of AC Inc. How's it going, Steven?
It is going well. Thanks for having me back, Belle.
Oh my gosh, of course. I'm so excited about our conversation today. I feel like it's been a hot minute since you were last on the podcast. You've been a busy, busy man.
Yes, I sure have. It's probably been a few months now, but it doesn't feel like that at all. It only seems like the other week we were chatting all things franchising.
Yeah, totally. Well, it also helps that you and I are on Zoom calls a lot anyways. So hopping on another Zoom call to record a podcast doesn't feel crazy. Um, I was actually going to start off with asking you about kind of what you have been up to this quarter. So we're in Q2. This podcast episode, as you guys all know, we do some nice little batching recordings. But when this comes out, still will be Q2. So I know you've got a lot of fun projects on the go that you've been working on. I wonder if you want to maybe tease one or two or talk about just what's been going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the most exciting of the projects right now is our field support benchmark project. The title is definitely a work in progress,
Oh,
but what we've really realized through working with our clients over the last few years is that everybody does field coaching slightly different, and there's no real benchmark out there that decides, who is a good field coach, what are the characteristics of a good field coach. And by the way, when I'm saying field coach, I really mean anyone that's working directly with your franchisees. So you may call them operations managers or business development managers, franchise business coaches, but we're just using the word field coach. And so what we're now going to be launching really, really soon is sort of the first industry assessment criteria where we can compare field coach teams, potential candidates to for the role, to what the industry deems as super high achieving top performers. And that's going to be really, really exciting.
oh my gosh. Well, it's no surprise. I did know about this project, so I'm not, reacting with shock and awe. But I am incredibly excited about this project. And this is, as you said, totally based off of us like kind of looking and seeing what our clients are doing and helping people hire field coaches and going, well, we have kind of a standard and we're using very specific, like a very specific methodology that we've created. But to actually have that based on data from the industry itself is so much more fun, first of all, and gets everyone so much more collaboratively involved, but also just builds off of data points, which is so fun. And I know we're all spreadsheet nerds, or spready, as Steven calls them.
Trademark term.
The trademark Steven term for a spreadsheet. But we all love data and spreadsheets. Anyone who listens to me and Brecken's podcast, or me and Jen, or anything, we are all, of course, obsessed. So this is extra exciting for that reason as well. And I'm so excited for it to launch and for everyone to get access. So that'll be coming at some point in the near future as well. So very exciting. Thanks for teasing that there, Steven. I want to hop directly into the topic today. Sometimes we do a little bit of preamble. Brecken told me the other day, he's like, maybe no one's as interested in that. And I was like, okay, maybe not. Unless it's Jen, of course, talking about her cottage or her travels or all those exciting things. But we're going to hop directly in today because we have a lot of stuff to talk about. So I wanted to get Steven on. So Steven is one of our kind of main connection points to all of our clientele, our community. You do a lot of conversations with industry leaders, with franchisors, with founders, and you get to hear a lot of what brands are currently doing, and then what, of course, they're looking for when it comes to franchisee support, franchisee performance, seeing overall growth in their company, and how like individual franchisees doing better affects that. So you get to have a lot of these really in-depth conversations with these leaders of these brands. So I thought this was a perfect time to ask you some questions about what these brands are doing, what they're looking for, what they're seeing success in when it comes to these topics. And of course, this is like the area of expertise that we have, which is that franchisee support, the field coaching, strategic growth coaching. But we're also getting to have the conversations of what people are currently doing and then looking for. So it's just this interesting insight that I wanted to get from you. And I know that you have a big list. Like I know that there's a lot of different things that people are doing, a lot of things people are starting to implement, and that there's kind of changes happening in the industry with this topic, which is so exciting. So I'll let you kind of take off here. I have a couple things I want to make sure we touch on, so I might circle back to a couple things. But why don't you kick us off with kind of an overall theme of things that brands are looking for when it comes to this niche part of the franchise growth space?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what we're seeing industry wide right now is a shift happening from the traditional sort of operational support. Other terms for operational could be, hotline support. But what we really mean is, a lot of systems have fantastic resources and they're always there for their franchisees should an issue come up or should a challenge present. But we're really seeing this shift from that sort of consulting style to a more proactive approach.
Mm,
And when we talk about proactivity. We're talking about getting in front of the challenges before they happen, really setting our franchisees up for success.
yeah.
And I think that that has been something that definitely a lot of the clients that we work with who are progressive, who get really great franchisee satisfaction scores, who are really being able to see the moving of the needle with their franchisees and the buy into their system. We're really seeing them get out in front. And I think one of the key ways that they're doing that is, and we come back, I think I spoke about this actually in the last podcast that I did, which was a long time ago, but it's really by listening.
Mm,
And it's rather than coming in and saying, you're not performing to the standard that we want, or there's this issue, or you could be doing this better. It's reinventing that conversation to say, what do you want from this? Obviously you wanted to be a business owner, you wanted to work for yourself, but what is your why?
mm,
A bit of a Simon Sinek plug there, but going back to, what is your why? Do you want to have 3 or 4 territories? Do you want to have a successful exit in 6 years? Do you want to make $150,000 a year and have a fantastic work-life balance? Any one of those answers is great. But really, when we can understand what their why is, now we can build a work back schedule. And now we can tie in everything that we say to support that franchisee in achieving their goals. And the spin-off, the consequence of that is that the franchisor will also get what they want out of it as well. But just simple tweaks in the messaging, in the cadence, in the way that we are sort of developing the framework of those sessions, I think is key to getting that buy-in and getting the franchisee to understand that we really are partners in this venture.
Oh my gosh, so true. And I think you touched on something that we talk a lot about, which is it's funny how sometimes we can all forget that franchisees and franchisors want the same thing. Like we're all on the same team, and the brands that we see doing so well are the brands that are continuing to kind of reiterate and create systems around that same focus, right? If franchisees do well and achieve their goals, it helps the overall company do better. And I think we sometimes can lose track of that. And that's where, again, this shift is happening, where we're starting to see more of that connection, more of that kind of understanding across the whole system, including the franchisees, including the home office team, and everyone being really aligned on that. I love that point. The other thing I was going to talk about is you kind of alluded to this already, and you talked about kind of the sessions that we do this kind of work, right? So the sessions where we do the listening, where we do the coaching, where we do the goal setting, like what do you want, really understanding the why, right? And I know that we work with obviously a very wide range of sizes of brands and different places, stages of growth. But maybe you want to just explain further, like those sessions. And again, you kind of already jumped into it, but that is what we call strategic growth coaching, right? That's a very specific part of the framework of franchisee support, of that proactive support. So maybe you want to dive, because it sounds like then if you're having lots of those conversations where those sessions are a key topic. So how often do we do these coaching sessions? How many people do we do them for, right? Which coaches work with different franchisees, right? How does all of that work? Maybe you want to get a little bit deeper into like, our brands really focusing on getting more of those sessions in place? Do they need help with kind of the cadence, as you mentioned? Like, where does the coaching sessions or the coaching process kind of come into it?
Yeah, and this is something that I always found interesting. It's, we as I mean, a majority of our listenership are franchisors or business owners themselves.
Hmm.
And so, we all have got to where we've got by having plans, by having roadmaps, by having a goal that we're trying to achieve, by regularly evaluating, right, regularly sort of, reestablishing what our priority list should be. And then a lot of the time, what we see is that with the franchisees, we don't follow that same process, and we just expect them, because they're following, the operations manual and the brand standards, that they'll just be successful. But they're still business owners that still need to have, a coach or a mentor, just like the rest of us. And so what we see is, when we can understand their why, now we can build that roadmap of, okay, what are the KPIs that we need to look at, and why are they important, and what's the strategy going to be, and really understanding that the franchisee may have gaps, opportunities in their experience and knowledge base that we take as second nature as business owners or as leaders. And we may need to really walk them through that process. And so the brands that we're seeing that are really excelling in supporting their franchisees are building the framework, that they're holding their franchisees accountable, but accountable to the agreed roadmap. And I think, agreed is the word there. It's not imposed. It's, okay, where do you want to go to? This is how we're going to get there. Do you agree to this? And it's not even just so much do you agree, but the franchisee is having their input on how they're going to get there. What's the things that they're passionate about? What the things that they're good at? And a good coach, a good support system will highlight those areas, and will put those, front and center, so that the franchisee can actually go and get, I was going to say traction, but go and get momentum. And so, now that I've said it, like something like entrepreneurial operating system like Traction is fantastic for just then saying, okay, there's lots of things you could be doing, but this quarter, these are the things we need to do. And we can worry about everything else next quarter, but these are your priority list to get you to where you need to go. And so when we look at how actual coaching sessions are run, we always want to be starting a session, evaluating and reviewing the action steps from the previous session. Check in with our 30-day roadmap, our 90-day objectives. What did we achieve? Were there any hurdles? If things weren't achieved, why not? How can we problem solve? What are the challenges and discussions and issues that we need to be discussing today? What resources do you need? And then what's the action steps that we're going to set from now for the next couple of weeks? And we find 2 touch points a month is really that sweet spot. Sometimes it's a lot less than that, and we're encouraging systems to have more regular meetings. But also we see systems that are like, oh, we're fantastic. We work with our franchisees every week, and we're always reaching out to them. And that can also be a little maladaptive as well, where the franchisee doesn't have enough time to actually go and focus on their business, because they're spending too much time prepping for those calls, and
Yeah.
being handheld a little bit too much.
Yeah, the overcoaching is something we've definitely seen a few times, and had to kind of like refigure the framework a little bit, just to make sure that the point is, you've made this so clear, which is awesome. Like the way that you've outlined kind of the things we're noticing with these brands, being that it's coaching, right? It's teaching, but it's based on the franchisees skill set and what they're passionate about and their goals, right? This is not we're not an instructor, or like, here's exactly what you need to do. It's like fully based on a collaborative process. And that's part of, and I'll link a couple episodes actually. I'll link the one where we talk about the skills of a coach, because we kind of talk a little bit about why that soft skill piece plays a big piece in what you've been talking about in these sessions, and in that collaborative goal setting and KPI setting and all this kind of stuff. All that process is based on having some really, really strong people and coaching skills. So I'll link that one. I'll also link the one where Jen goes through the structure of a coaching call, because just what you were talking about there is very similar to what she outlined. So if anyone's looking for more information on like a broad, I mean, obviously we get a lot more in detail when we come work with your system, but just for kind of a general guide of what those sessions can kind of look like, there's a great episode where Jen goes through that as well. So I'll link both of those. So it sounds like, Steven, if I could kind of summarize what we've been talking about so far, it sounds like that brands really are focusing, and we've seen this for the past few years as we've been working with clients for sure, is really starting to shift into more proactive support. So less of just kind of reacting to the issues that come up, and more of really trying to get ahead and actually try to build a more successful franchisee life path, a life cycle of journey, so that franchisees can also exit more successfully, or like build more generational wealth for their family to hand these businesses down. So really actually creating more success across the entire life cycle, and getting more ahead of that process. So that proactive support, that was what you first talked about. And then talking about these coaching calls and building a proper kind of effective process. So building around an effective framework. So having that coaching framework, having those coaching sessions where we're kind of implementing that proactive support. The last thing I do want to make sure we talk about, because I know that we've had obviously tons of episodes about this as well, like link 1,000 at this point. But definitely we've talked a lot about this role, this, who is doing this, right? Who is kind of actually implementing all the things you just said, because and I think you'll say this in a minute, but like the franchisors are often at a point where sometimes they've been doing it, or one of their kind of home office team members have been doing it, and you start to get to a point where you realize this is a very, very important role, and who is doing this, and the skill training that they get is actually going to impact so much of our system success and so much of our brand success. It's kind of crazy when you think about it.
100%. I think that, and this, disclaimer alert, this may be a little pointed, but I think that it blows my mind when I see in some systems how this role is considered, entry level.
Mm.
You're as far as I think we're concerned, and yes, we are a little biased, but it's one of the most important roles. The field coach, the field support, the person who is directly working with the franchisee is one of the most important roles in your entire organization. They are somebody who is going to uh, free up the time of the leadership team to go and do what they need to do to grow the system. And they're going to be able to influence between 20 and 50 franchisees, depending on the system, depending on whether or not they are good at their job, bad at their job, having a good day, having a bad day. We need to understand who this person is, and this really ties back into the project I said that we were working on being able to evaluate the skill set of these people.
Yeah.
um this is a role where you need to have one of three things. You need to be a good coach, you need to have some form of business experience, and you also need to understand franchising.
Mm.
And I think you can have really any two of those. If you've got one and you're sort of struggling a little bit, there's opportunities. If you've got none of those, you shouldn't be in that role. And so when you think about the emotional and social intelligence that is required
Mm.
to work with a friend, be on a call with a franchisee who is disengaged and frustrated, and things aren't happening at the speed that they wanted them to, and then get off of that call and jump onto another call with a top performer who is just wanting more information, and how can I do better, and how can I do, you know, that takes a very special, particular sort of person. And I think that we're, from the roundtables that we've been running, and from these larger calls that we've been having, it's becoming more and more apparent that systems are challenged a little bit with finding these sort of unicorns, as you will,
Yeah.
in regards to field coach teams.
Yeah, and that speaks totally to the hiring piece and like the value of that role. And as I said, I will link that episode where Angela goes through all the different skills. You again briefly touched on the kind of you need two out of the three piece, which is something we talk about when we help brands hire new coaches. But I think the big thing too that's popping out in my head as you're talking is the need for the right training, not only the right people that you're finding for these roles, which, as you said, being able to have like an industry benchmark, which is why we're so excited about this project coming up, because it's something that we just feel has been needed for so long, and it's going to help people find those right candidates, find the people who have the right mindset, the right framework, the right even emotional intelligence, all those kinds of things. But then also it's the training, and that's again where we're seeing more brands kind of recognize like finding the right person for a role is incredible. But when someone is so closely working with so many different types of franchisees and is really the number one touch point they have with your brand and how valuable that is. And I agree. We've had rants in the past of just like, it's so insane when this person is the person who's the connecting point between leadership and successful business owners of your brand, and you want them to be thriving, not only doing well, but doing the absolute best they possibly can be. And when that person is in that role and you don't have really solid kind of training and development, all those kinds of things available to them, that's where it can get really tricky, because finding the right person is one half of it, and then making sure they have the skills and the understanding of the brand is kind of that other half. Yeah, I think it's just that's such a key point as we kind of finish up this discussion today.
Yeah, and so the development, the professional development of field coach teams is just another area that we need to have more companies such as ours. We need to have more resources available. We have we know FBR, for instance, has now started their operations um, conference that
Yeah.
happens fall, and that's specifically focused around development for ops teams, and that's great. Prior to that coming out, there wasn't really a conference for that. You can send your field support teams to some of the big events, but the information there, some of it's Fran Dev related, some of it is CEO related. It's there's no clear or has been really no clear opportunities just for how to develop these teams. And so a lot of the times the development lands on the ability or the resources that the leadership team has. And we're all very, very busy. And so if
Yeah.
it's not prioritized or outsourced, usually it's not as effective as it could be. And so this is why we're so proud of the curriculum that we've developed over the years, where we really have an end-to-end training process for taking somebody brand new all the way through to being an effective field coach. And then also sort of an a la carte menu where we can gap train and we can improve field coach and field support teams on certain areas. Maybe it is on the art of actually how to be a coach and the emotional social intelligence piece. Maybe it's more on the actual business foundations and how to understand and communicate the importance of financials and budgeting and P&Ls. Like these are all factors that need to be considered. And investing in your field coach teams, if we can make them 5% better at their job, the trickle down effect of that onto those franchisees is huge.
So huge. We actually just did a recent episode with Brecken. It was published last month about getting franchisees excited about KPIs. And that's exactly what you're talking about, is these little things that that's part of that development, right? So the training is, of course, so foundational, so important. Same with franchisees. That initial training is going to be so foundational to their success. But it's that ongoing development about things like that. Like it's not even that it's trends, but it's just that the way we communicate about things, the best practices kind of are constantly evolving and changing. So being able to focus on things like getting franchisees excited about KPIs, like that's just a very foundational piece. And even if we do some training on it, it's something that if you have more development and ongoing support on as a coach, it's going to help so much with those ongoing conversations with your franchisees. So Steven, this has been so incredible. I have just been so impressed with how much we can get through in such a short amount of time, honestly. And it's been really, really helpful to kind of just hear from your perspective and the conversations you're having with brands about what is making a big difference, like what is contributing to this huge growth when we really refocus in on the franchisee success piece, which is something we're, of course, so passionate about. So this has been awesome. Is there anything you want to add before we finish up the episode today?
Not really. No, this is really what I love most about my role here at AC Inc. is just I get to look under the hood of so many different systems, large and small. And it's, I think the common theme throughout every system is every franchisor wants to be doing better. They always want to be offering more support. And really it's the how. Everyone's budget is different. Everybody's challenges are different. Some systems are more technical than others. And so really all I would say here is if there's anybody listening to this and you just want to have an exploration conversation around what or how your field coach support could be improved, just please reach out to me and I'm more than happy to jump on a call.
Oh, that's such a great way to end. Thank you so much, Steven. You kind of took my end spiel I usually do.
Apologies.
Well, Stephen, we will definitely be having you back. This was so, so awesome. And as Stephen mentioned, just reach out, angelacote.com/contact will take you directly to our form where you can reach out and book a call with Stephen to learn all about kind of our different options and different ways we can support on this super, super exciting topic. So thank you everyone for listening today and go be awesome.